Hey horror fans, welcome back to another episode of Terror Talk where I discuss creepy clips online. The original horror music that you hear in these videos is composed by me. Now imagine being able to save on everyday expenses and put that money towards your next horror movie outing, spooky decor, or haunted carnival excursion. Be sure to watch all the way through as I have something that will help feed your next horror adventures. Now let's get into it and have some fun.
It was supposed to be one of, if not the last delivery of the night for me. I was working at this pizzeria called Leonardo's. One of my bosses, Frank, was on the night shift with me. He would choose who does what delivery. We got an order for a couple regular pizzas. He gave me a piece of paper with the address on it and the person's phone number. This was in 2009. I didn't have a cell phone that had GPS, just a bare bones flip phone. I also didn't have one of those Garmin GPSs.
Kinda crazy to think that not too long ago there were flip phones, huh? I mean, now we have all these fancy smartphones. But dang. Just think back to those times where you had a flip phone. Do you remember having a flip phone? That was one of the first phones I had in high school. It was a really piece of crap, but I guess it did what it had to do, but now having smartphones, it's like, dang, that is some old school technology. Let me know in the comments below if you remember having your first smartphone.
Still had to use an old school book of maps to find my way around when doing deliveries. The name of this
Sorry, I meant to say your first flip phone, not smartphone. My bad.
street that this house I was doing my last delivery for was something along the lines of Willows Road. I can't remember the house number, nor do I remember the name given for the order, but I do remember having the hardest time finding the place. It was in this really rural town with nothing but woods, farmland, and more woods. The lack of streetlights also didn't help. I had to pull over a few times and turn on the interior lights as I checked the map again. It was a very stress-inducing situation whenever I couldn't find a house. I was on a very quiet, dark, and confusing road when I decided to just call the number on the paper my boss gave me. The phone rang a bunch of times. It seemed that there was no answering machine set up to it. It had to have rung about 10 times before someone picked up, and I waited for someone to say hello. When no one did, I said it, and then a voice on the other end said it back. It was a low, deep, yet soft voice. I said, "This is the pizza guy. I'm just having a hard time finding your place." He explained that his driveway was easy to miss and looks like just a dirt trail. He talked in a very slow, monotone voice as he described the surroundings of his driveway to help me find it, and eventually I did. I turned my car onto this pretty narrow dirt path. It was definitely easy to miss. It took about 30 seconds of me driving slowly and carefully up it.
I feel like this would be a nightmare for any kind of delivery job because I feel like this happens more often than not. Let me know if this ever happens to you on delivery runs, whether it's for pizza or Uber Eats or Instacart or whatever it is. Let me know in the comments if you ever struggle with this, because I feel like, even though you do have GPS these days, that some things could still be hard to find. And this already kind of sounds like a nightmare, so.
Till I saw this small, one-story house come into view. There was a faint orange glow from inside the house that could be seen through one of the windows. I parked my car next to the only other vehicle in sight, this jalopy of a pickup truck. I grabbed the 2 pizzas from the passenger seat and walked to the front door of the house. I looked for a doorbell, couldn't find one, so I knocked on the door. I heard muffled music from inside the house. Then I heard footsteps approaching the door, stop, and then after maybe 10 seconds, the door cracked open, and I saw a quarter of someone's face. I literally could just see one of their eyes peeking out at me. I nervously said, "Hey, you ordered the pizza, right?" The guy said, "Oh yes, the pizza." I recognized the voice from the phone call from before. There was a weird pause. I didn't know what to say, except for, "Do you have the cash?" He said, "Yes, let me go get it." He walked away from the door, and I heard his footsteps move to another room. There was super old music from like the 1930s playing, making the setting just extra creepy and weird. if it weren't creepy enough already.
Yeah, what would you think if there was that kind of music playing in the background? I mean, for me personally, like, I love that kind of music. From the 40s, 50s, the old jazz classics, big band type stuff. I love listening to that kind of music. But if you went to someone's house and they were playing that, that's not the typical norm. But I can see how in an instance like this, where the guy is already kind of being creepy, the way he's answering the door and just that music in the background, like, I can definitely see how that would be unsettling.
Then the door started slowly inching open on its own, revealing more and more of this dimly lit room. Everything about the interior of this place seemed super old. There were metal sheets on the floor, presumably covering holes in the floor. The couch looked like it was from a different century. Hell, all of the furniture did. And the music was coming from a vintage-looking record player, one of those with the big horn-like thing at top. That's all I could see at first from just sneaking a nosy peek inside the place. But what really was off-putting was the smell. It smelled like death in there. I waited respectfully for the guy to come back with the money, from wherever he went. When enough time passed that I felt like it was getting weird, I knocked on the open door, took a peek inside, and said, "Sir?" The man's voice came from another room, saying, "Yes, would you mind coming into the kitchen, please?" My coworkers and bosses always advised against stepping into anyone's house if you didn't have to. That advice seemed especially relevant for this circumstance.
And that is actually pretty good advice, I think. Because why would you need to step in the first place, unless something really weird is going on like this? You know, people can just walk and hand you the money. But yeah, this is definitely getting weird.
I heard what the man said, but I still responded, "Can you repeat that?" He repeated, "Can you come to the kitchen, please?" I stepped inside, and I honestly felt like my feet were going to crash through the floor. The place was so old that the floor actually caved in a bit as I stepped around. The house was very linear. I looked to the right and saw the entrance to the kitchen, where his voice was coming from. I looked to the left, and there was a narrow hallway which had a bunch of doors on the right side. At the end of the hallway, there was this guy with his back to me, slowly dancing in the creepiest way imaginable. The man was feeling himself. I don't mean he felt confident. I mean he was literally feeling his body as he moved in this really off-putting way. In any other circumstance, I would laugh, but I was downright disturbed of what kind of house I'd just walked into. I turned away and looked to the kitchen, still holding these 2 pizza boxes. I took a few steps toward the kitchen before I even noticed the person peering around the edge of the wall separating the kitchen from the living room. It was that man's face again, still only showing like a quarter of his face. Just one of his eyes creepily peering at me. The only thoughts I had in this moment were, what the fuck, and should I just leave? I repeated what I said at the front door moments ago, asking him again if he has the cash. The man didn't respond. He started to just giggle, or I don't even know what I'd call it, because the laugh was so deep in pitch, but it was so subtle and soft. Then he called out Randall in a startlingly loud voice, much louder and more commanding in tone than his previous soft-spoken monotone voice. I was at my limit of how much weirdness I could take. I turned around and started walking back to the front door, and as I took a look down the hallway as I was about to walk outside, I noticed that guy who was dancing seconds ago was now simply just standing there, looking back at me. I left through the front door and closed it behind me. I hurried back to the car, for some reason still holding the pizzas. I threw the pizza boxes in the passenger seat and got back in the car as quickly as possible. As I was backing my car up to clear the pickup truck next to it so that I could just do a 3-point turn, I did look back at the house, and the door was fully open again. My heart started beating even quicker at the thought that one of them was outside my car about to attempt to open one of the doors. Maybe they were, and I'll never know. But I managed to get my car down that dirt driveway and back onto the road. I had to return to the pizzeria. I called Frank to let him know what happened. He wasn't mad at me. When I got back to the pizzeria, everyone laughed when I told them what happened. I can honestly see how it sounds like a funny situation when explaining it to others, but it was not funny in the moment. Whatever was going on in that house wasn't normal, and I don't think they had any intentions of buying pizza. I've had multiple dreams where I would see that man's face just peeking around from behind a wall. After that, I didn't enter anyone's houses or apartments while doing deliveries.
That's pretty crazy that the guy was just dancing with himself and feeling himself. Like, that is most certainly not normal. And having that head peer around the wall like that, oh man. If there's one thing that creeps me out in these horror stories is people creeping and peering out from behind places and lurking. And I don't know why that is so unsettling to me, but it just is. And I can definitely see how it would be a funny story too when told, but in the moment, just imagine putting yourself in that guy's shoes. Just walking into a situation like that. And I don't know, it almost kind of seems like something in Silence of the Lambs, doesn't it? When the guy is kind of just like dressing up and dancing around and stuff like that. It almost kind of sounds exactly like that type of feel. Only this guy wasn't dressing up in women's clothes and other people's skin. But at the same time, it does kind of have that same vibe, doesn't it? But yeah, I thought this was definitely a creepy story. And maybe even one of the creepier ones on this channel because it seems so realistic that it could actually happen. But I definitely enjoyed this story, and I hope that you enjoyed my commentary and the music, and be sure to check out the pinned comment below because I have something for you that will help you start saving some money and maybe even making some more money for your next horror adventures. So be sure to check that out in the pinned comment, and I will see you in the next video.